Hi, good morning and welcome to another edition of Business Bites from Bauer Media here in Northern Ireland. My name is David Tighe, the Managing Director of Bauer Media, and each week we take an insight into a business in our part of the world and find out a little bit more about what's going on. Well, this week my guest is Kathryn Thomson. She's the Chief Executive of National Museums Northern Ireland. Kathryn, welcome to Business Bites.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, thank you. It's great to have you with us this morning. Let's find out a little bit about the conversation. So, National Museums NI, there are some people that have suggested that I should have been put in a museum quite a while ago. But let's talk about the modern day view of museums, because some people may have the idea that it's full of old things, but actually I think museums have moved on quite considerably in what they do on a day-to-day basis, haven't they?
Very much so, David. At National Museums Northern Ireland, we're actually a group of 4 museums, so everyone will be very familiar with them. We have the Ulster Museum in Belfast, we have the Ulster Folk Museum and the Ulster Transport Museum just outside Hollywood, and then the Ulster American Folk Park in Omagh. And I think as a group of museums, we've had to ask ourselves questions over recent years around really what is our role and purpose in society today. Like any business, you need to be relevant for your audiences and for your visitors and for your customers. And I think in the past, before we had the internet, people would have come to museums to source information, to learn. But now there's so much content accessible to you from your sofa that when people come to museums, they're looking for a very different type of experience. And I think where museums and the role museums play within society today, we have and collect lots of objects from the past, but really we think we're a lot more about the future. So as people come into museums, we want the collections and the objects and the exhibitions and the events, we want them to be places for conversation, to debate and discuss things that are really important to people in life. And by reflecting on the past, we can learn from it. But critically, that helps us to challenge and make sense of the world around us, and ultimately look to the future and how do we build a better future together.
Yeah, amazing. And the Ulster Museum, one of those museums, is marking 50 years since it opened the doors of the extended area, or the modern day museum, probably as we know it now. So when we look back, and I think it's important that we do, what role has that museum played, do you think, in our part of the world, from a cultural perspective?
The Ulster Museum, as you say, it actually predates 50 years. It's 50 years as the Ulster Museum with the extension, but its location on that site goes back 100 years, and the origins of the collection even further than that. So it really is a place which tells us about who we are, where we've come from, and our place in the world and our connection globally. And I think that's very important. I think that the Ulster Museum is free, and so it has always been there for everybody, regardless of their background. It's a safe place, it's a shared space, and in all the years that it's been opened until COVID-19, despite everything that this place has been through, we have never had to close our doors, and I think that's quite incredible. But unfortunately, the pandemic changed that. But I think critically for the Ulster Museum, and particularly in terms of our history and the fact that we are very much dealing with the legacy of our past, that the Ulster Museum is a place where we can really help to challenge perceptions. We have a shared history, but we don't have a shared memory. Neither do we have a shared lived experience, and everybody's perspective is different. And I think by understanding each other better and understanding where we're coming from, by asking difficult questions and debating those questions in a safe place, the Ulster Museum has a very significant role to play within our community in terms of our social peace process.
And you talk about, I suppose, the more recent past. How have the museums fared, obviously, through the most recent challenge of COVID, as we've sort of evolved through that, hopefully, now. When you look back on that, how did that work for the museums? Was it hard?
For every business, it was really hard. We had to shut our doors with 24 hours notice. We then had to manage all of our colleagues and our teams across the organisations. We had people on furlough, we had people working from home, we had people that were still coming into the sites. We had to make all of the adjustments and the safety requirements to be able to reopen our doors and welcome our visitors back again. But we were really encouraged by the demand. I think what the pandemic has challenged people to do is to think about how they spend their time and what they want to do. But also, I think the pandemic has made people want to reconnect to the things that really matter in life. And I think that's where at museums we have a big role to play. People can come in and they can really discover and explore heritage, our culture, our arts, and I think and enjoy time with their family and friends.
Yeah, I read that there's like over 1.4 million artifacts held within the museum's infrastructure across all of the museums. I mean, that's some job. I mean, that's some job looking after all that stuff, which is so precious to our history. Must come with a huge level of pride from the staff that work in the museums.
I think when we do our surveys, our employee surveys, I think it's very vocational working in the museums, and people have a real passion for what they do. And I think for someone who comes into our museums, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that is not visible, from conservation to collecting. We're collecting all the time, to archiving, and there's so many different ways that people can get involved. So people think of museums as just somewhere to go for a day out, but we've massive volunteering programs, and coming to our sites and engaging with the collections can be very good for health and well-being. And I think we've a big role to play in terms of building communities and community identity. And there's, the ways that you can participate in the life of a museum are way beyond just coming in and having a day out. So I think there's so much that we do, and the breadth and depth of what we do. And we have a real ambition to make our museums as accessible as possible. We know that a lot of people don't necessarily want or have traditionally come to museums, but I think the way that we can make them more accessible and that we can make our audiences more diverse is by ensuring that more diverse voices are represented within the museum. So one of the exhibitions we have this year to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Ulster Museum is very much not so much about looking past, but actually looking at our role in society and looking to the future. And we have an exhibition called Inclusive Global Voices, where we have a number of commitments around our World Cultures collection. And it's we have a lot of things in our collection that have been collected globally over decades. And we want to start bringing those things on display, asking, why do we have these items? Should we have these items? Was how they were collected ethical? And we've been building partnerships with local ethnic minority communities and global communities, and we've seen a greater diversity of people coming into the museum because they can see themselves reflected there. And we want that space to very much be a conversation about where as a society we are today and where we're headed in the future.
Sounds amazing. Briefly, as we come to the end of our conversation, just wanted to touch on a couple of things ahead. So there's Halloween and there's Christmas. You were talking about events, so you've obviously got some fun planned around those events.
Yep, well, I'm actually in Ouma today, and Halloween is a massive occasion, and we have torchlit tours. They can be quite scary, and they are always fun and always in high demand. And the whole site is dressed and decorated, as is the Ulster Folk Museum, over the Halloween period. So there's a lot for families to enjoy. There's a lot for older people to enjoy. And then we have our Christmas programs coming up across our sites. All of our museums will have Christmas and opportunities to visit Santa, all of those fun things that you do at Christmas. And the exhibition programme at the Ulster Museum is always evolving. This week, we'll see the opening of the annual RUA exhibition, which is an up for all the local artists that have entered the competition. Their works will be displayed in the Ulster Museum alongside the national collection. And I think it's always a fantastic celebration of the creativity that we have within this place. And so we look forward to that this week.
Well, Kathryn, it's been absolutely fascinating finding out about the museums that all come under the umbrella of National Museums NI. Thank you for being our guest this week. You've got a fab new website, I hear, which we're going to put up at the end. So I'd encourage everyone to have a look at that and take a look around. But listen, all the best for the future to you and all the team at National Museums NI.
Thank you, David, and I hope to see you in every one of our museums soon.
Hopefully not as a display, but I'll definitely as a visitor.